Can you shoot?
I have to.
Oh, you'll have to.
The English is the latest in a genre that continues to be a staple of TV and film. Tales of the violent, lawless, and thrilling Old West have been told on screen for decades. But how do Western shows and films that have been praised by critics compare with the historical facts?
I wouldn't look to any of these films to provide a realistic portrait of what it was actually like in, say, the 19th century West, or in the case of Last of the Mohicans in the 18th century East.
The English, starring Emily Blunt as the fictional Lady Cornelia Locke, who has come to the US to hunt down the man she holds responsible for the death of her son. Set largely in 1890, the show depicts the intertwining of her fate with Native American Eli Whip. Whip is a member of a real tribe, the Pawnee, and many of them really were US cavalry scouts. Whip's mention of how the English gave us all kinds of illness is an allusion to how millions of Native Americans were killed by diseases such as smallpox that had been unwittingly brought to the continent by the English and other colonists. 1883 follows the Dutton family as they travel from Tennessee to Montana. Putting aside our main character's perfectly white teeth that would have been rare at the time, the hit show, the prequel to Yellowstone, gets many things right about the era. We see German immigrants attempting to make their way from Texas's Fort Worth to Oregon, a journey that millions of European immigrants embarked on at the time. They're protected by Tim McGraw's James Dutton, Sam Elliott's Shay Brennan, and LaMonica Garrett's Thomas, who are both Pinkerton detectives. The Pinkerton Detective Agency was very much real and still exists today. The show's costumes and weapons are generally accurate too, although a rogue 1885 Winchester high-wall rifle does make an appearance.
And I find that they tend to be often focused on getting the details right of costumes or the type of locomotive or the type of firearms that are used, rather than kind of getting the big picture of the time right.
Smallpox, it is an ever-present threat. A German couple are sent to die after being found to have it. But in 1883, it was actually treatable. Most of the characters are fictional, though Billy Bob Thornton's gun-toting Marshal Jim Courtright did really exist, as well as General George Meade, who is played in a cameo role by Tom Hanks. The Last of the Mohicans, starring Daniel Day-Lewis, is set in 1757 during the French and Indian War, more than 100 years before the English and 1883. Although the characters are largely fictional, the backdrop is very real. The film depicts the siege by French and Indian forces of the British-held Fort William Henry in what is now known as the state of New York. The film's title implies there are no Mohicans left. The tribe was not wiped out and still exists, with most of its 3,000 members living in Wisconsin. Tombstone is based on events in the infamous Arizona city of the same name during the 1880s. Kurt Russell as Wyatt, Sam Elliott as Virgil, and Powers Booth as Brocius. We also see characters including Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday and Michael Biehn's Johnny Ringo. Nearly all were involved in the 30-second gunfight at the OK Corral, which is considered the most famous shootout in the history of the Old West. Despite the rich historical backdrop, one of the film's most famous moments, which sees Doc Holliday shoot his nemesis, Johnny Ringo, is invented. Ringo's death was actually ruled to be a suicide. He was found with a bullet wound to his head and his pistol hanging on his finger. Dances with Wolves was lauded by viewers and critics alike. Set in 1863 during the Civil War, the film sees Union Army Lieutenant John Dunbar, played by Costner, befriend a group of Lakota Native Americans, and a wolf he names Two Socks. There are no real historical figures in the film, although the Lakota chief Ten Bears was based on a real Comanche chief of the same name. In the film's admirable quest to cast Native Americans in a more positive light, one shocking scene shows scores of buffalo that have been skinned and left to rot by white hunters. But buffalo were not killed for their skins until 1871, when new tanning and techniques meant they could be exploited commercially. It was this fact that famously led to their virtual extinction in North America before the turn of the 20th century.
Westerns are always kind of making a claim about America and the meaning of America. They're making an argument about what is the nature of this country. A lot of the Westerns in recent times, including Yellowstone, including 1883, including English, it seems, reflect our kind of cynical feelings about what the American project is right now.